Thanks for tapping in with 95 South TV, hosted by Icon Ian KJ, bringing you the best news and media through the efforts of the community. We interview nonprofit organizations, business owners, school teachers, spiritual leaders, and anybody who has an impact in the community that has a remarkable backstory. These professionals that we bring on this show has a story that will wow you, that will knock your socks off. And with that being said, we want you to tune in, keep it locked. We want you to like, share, follow, and subscribe. Be a dedicated listener. Come in, and if you require to do an interview, you can definitely reach out to us at 95southpodcast@gmail.com.
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Icon. And here, once again, we're here on 95 South TV. First and foremost, I want to thank God for this opportunity, because without him, there'd be no us. Secondly, I got my right-hand man, your baby mama favorite host, Barry White Jr. voice himself, Jacob the Great. What's going on, brother?
Hey man, glad to be in the land of the living. Another day to get it all the way right.
Okay. And then next, I got, and that's Mr. The coach of the year, Mr. Coach Goins. How you doing, brother?
Well, listen, man, it's almost 60 degrees today in the Commonwealth of Virginia, so it's all good, and we locked and loaded, and we ready to roll.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce this gentleman that we have on here today. Oh, before we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and just throw out the semantics. Do our due diligence. This is powered by 810 Studios, Roku channel, InspireRadio.com, and please subscribe to us at 95 South Network. So now we got that out the way. We got the business out the way. Let's get to the real business. Go ahead.
All
sir.
right. So listen, man, it is what 100% our pleasure to have on none other than Mr. John Harris. So as they say in Hollywood, I'm gonna stick to the script. So let's talk about this thing. So Mr. Harris is an award-winning journalist who has covered sports, culture, race, and also executive search industry for the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review, Philadelphia Inquirer, the Tampa Bay Times, ESPN, Andscape, and CBS Sportsline, and other. Formerly the co-host of the Ike Turner Show and radio analyst of the Pittsburgh Power Arena Football League. Mr. Harris is a co-author of From Gold Teeth to the Gold Jacket with Edgerrin James, and he resides in Austin, Texas, and he has just finished his latest and greatest project, and I'm going to hold that up. Tomlin, the soul of a football coach. And we like to welcome to the show Mr. John Harris.
Appreciate you very, very much, fellas. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So listen, Mr. Harris, we're going to go ahead and get right into this thing. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I've been a Steelers fan all my life. And then when Cindy reached out and she says, hey, you got to talk to John Harris. I said, okay. I said, who is Mr. Harris? And she said, I'm going to send you an email. And I clicked on that email and I saw that and I was like, and again, I'm a huge, like I said, huge Steelers fan, huge Mike Tomlin fan. So with that pen and paper in your hand, as you sat down with one of the most elite coaches in the history, not only was African-American coach, but somebody that is well educated, and you documented that in the book. What was that experience like, Mr. Harris?
Well, I mean, I covered Mike's first 10 years in Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review, so I had a first-hand front row seat to all of it. That's kind of what inspired me to write the book. I had researched it, and I was surprised that no one had written a book about him. And I figured my proximity to him, just who he is, what he's accomplished, what he's done, I felt if nothing else, he deserved a book. And I felt like there was nobody better than me to tell it. I could tell it from a football standpoint. I could tell it from a being there in Pittsburgh standpoint. I can tell it, as I write about in the book, being a Black reporter covering a Black football coach in Pittsburgh was a very unique experience. And I think I was able to convey some of that as well. Very unusual there. I'll leave it at that. 19 years there, he went through it in a lot of different ways, had great success, but it wasn't always easy for him. Was not a fan favorite. He was not the one they wanted, the media, the fans. So he's always was constantly fighting against that, despite the success of never having a losing season in 19 years.
Absolutely. That's fact. So Jacob, I know you listening, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to you, Jacob.
So being a reporter and understanding what journalism is, and you've been doing it for quite some time. What are the hurdles that you had to go through, as being black and brown? Like, I know you had to jump through different hurdles, and people, you know, um, not understanding who you are as a man, as a reporter, as a journalist, and as a public figure. So, what are those challenges that you had to face?
Well, I'll deal with the experience in Pittsburgh. I mean, I had been in a lot of different cities, had never covered a team like the Steelers, had never worked in a city like Pittsburgh. My goal when I went there, the Tribune-Review was the newer paper, the smaller paper. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette was the big paper of record. So I looked at the surroundings. I figured my best bet was going to be able to connect with the players, a way to cut in there to gain trust and to get a better insight into not only the team, but into Mike Tomlin. So, in anything in life, it's a constant proving yourself. And I felt like I did that. I felt like I had an insight onto the Steelers and to Mike Tomlin and a lot of the other reporters there in Pittsburgh don't have till this day. And I live in Austin, Texas now. I haven't been in Pittsburgh and lived in Pittsburgh in 10 years. But I still feel like I have a good feel for it. I have a really good feeling for what the last couple of years were like for Mike Tomlin and maybe some of the reasons why he decided to step down. Even though I was surprised that he did it, I think I understand why he did it.
Okay, so I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I got a lot of friends that's Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and so we have this thing. So we have you on here now, and so you can answer this. Do you truly understand what does people understand what it means to be a Steelers fan, and what is the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because you're actually the first one I ever asked about the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and if you can give us a synopsis on what it is because you was there.
I remember when I first got there, I think my first road trip, they played the Raiders, I think, who they were then the Oakland Raiders. And I remember getting on the elevator at the hotel, and all these people had Steeler gear on. And they were telling me, as soon as the Steelers schedule comes out, we plan our vacations around their road games. So every road trip we took, there were Steeler fans. And in most stadiums on the road, there were usually more Steeler fans in the seats than the home team. I think that's still the case to this day. It's just it's hard to explain. I guess the Steelers really gained their popularity in the 70s during the time when the steel industry was struggling. A lot of people moved from the Pittsburgh area because of jobs. So you have Steeler fans all over the country, people that relocated because of that. But they remain members of Steeler Nation. And it's as strong now as I think it's ever been. It's really strong when they're a Super Bowl contender. That hasn't been the case lately. Even a couple weeks ago, I did a book signing here in Austin, Texas, and there's a Steeler group that came out and supported me. So there's a huge Pittsburgh Steelers group of fans in Austin, Texas, and in a lot of cities around the country. And so, I would say most major cities and smaller cities as well have a Steeler Nation group or multiple Steeler Nation groups. So it's just an amazing thing that, I mean, they do it. They all came to this book sign. They all had the Steelers shirts on, the jerseys. They all bought books, of course. And it's interesting. So I guess once you understand that, then you can maybe look at some of the pressure Mike Tomlin was feeling. The Steelers have not had a losing season since 2003. Steeler fans are incredibly spoiled. A winning season is not enough. 500. Well, you can't have a 500 season anymore because now you have 17 games. So even though Mike Tomlin never had a losing season the last couple of years, they went to the playoffs, but they lost in the first round of the playoffs. But according to the fans and the media, that's not enough. The Steelers hadn't won a playoff game in 6-7 years. And that's what fans were focusing on. Win a playoff game. We need you to win us a playoff game. It didn't matter if you won 10 games. It doesn't matter if you win 11 games. It doesn't matter if you go 9-8. We want you to win a playoff game. So the pressure was incredible. And the fact that never had a losing season, it's just remarkable. I don't know if that'll ever be topped, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think it'll be top. That's phenomenal. And when you think about it, um, behind the scenes, we as fans, because I'm not a Steelers fan, but I'm definitely a fan of Mike Tomlin. You know, I call him OG Mike. So, I'm definitely a fan of OG Mike. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, you as a writer on a intimate setting, a personalized setting, when you're writing, some of the backstories that you have to write about, what was that moment that touched you the most as you was writing?
I think when I wrote about the process, how that when the actual hiring process took place back in 2007, I wrote a lot about the two newspapers. I had been there a year, and just the pressure of trying to find out who was going to be the coach, and how the media reacted to that, how the fans reacted to that. It was an everyday thing. I don't know if there's ever been a job search like that before. He came out of nowhere. Um, Russ Grimm, who was an assistant coach, everybody thought on the Steelers staff, everybody thought he was going to get the job. Everybody knew him. He had been under Bill Cowher. He was from Pittsburgh. He had attended the University of Pittsburgh. Everybody knew him. The fans knew him. He was white. Mike Tomlin was 34 years old. Nobody knew him. He had no Pittsburgh connection. He had been an NFL assistant coach for 6 years. And just that whole, if you add that all up and mix it up and make a gumbo out of it, you can see what the shock and surprise that took place when he was announced as the head coach. And immediately, I'm telling you, think about this. He's 34. The team had won a Super Bowl the year before. The quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, has lunch with him and basically tells him, the players really didn't want you. You're going to have to prove yourself to them. Imagine that, young coach, not just getting any NFL job. And I researched this. No other black coach has ever gotten a job like that in the NFL. When Tony Dungy took over Tampa Bay, I think it had 12 or 13 straight losing seasons. Very rarely have you seen a black coach get a job like that. A team that had a history of winning Super Bowls, a team that was removed from the Super Bowl by 2 years. So the pressure goes way up. He's not taking over a team that won 2 games the year before or was 3-14. He's taking over a team that 2 years earlier had won a Super Bowl. So you toss that in. He's 34. He's black. He wasn't the one people wanted. The players are kind of against him. So he's stepping into all of that, and he handled it all somehow. And in the second season, he wins the Super Bowl. So to me, just those first two, in the first 4 years, he goes to 2 Super Bowls. So think about that when you think about his whole career, his 19-year career, and what he didn't do at the end. To me, the beginning of his career with the Steelers is fascinating. It still remains fascinating. To me, will always be because of what he was able to do and the fact that he took over a team, a storied franchise, and took them to a Super Bowl, took them to their 6th Super Bowl, and did it his way. Got those veteran players to respect him. Players that didn't want him, openly didn't want him, came around and became his biggest boosters.
Right. I turn it over to you, man.
So the question I have is it how much of a testament to the Pittsburgh Steelers organization ownership that they hired a young black coach that nobody knew, and secondly, he stayed around for 19 years. How much is that a testament and almost like a hats off to Pittsburgh? Because like we know we don't see, you're not gonna see that every day in across the NFL. And for even like you said, in the last few years, he didn't have the best record, and he kind of walked away on his own terms. So speak on that, please.
You'll never see that again. And really, I separate the Pittsburgh Steelers from Dan Rooney. Dan Rooney was the owner. He passed away a few years back. It doesn't happen without Dan Rooney. Dan Rooney was an unusual man, open-minded, someone who was willing to, even though the Steelers had interviewed two candidates satisfying the Rooney Rule, which is in place, that you need to interview minority candidates for head coaching and front office jobs. John Wooten, who played for the Cleveland Browns, if you've ever seen the picture of Jim Brown running, John Wooten is number 60 out there blocking, was running the Fitzpatrick Alliance. And, in effect, the Rooney Rule, he had a long-standing relationship with Dan Rooney, asked him, blowing up he's a Mr. Rooney, as a favor, we have this young man. They had something called the Ready List, and the Fitzpatrick Alliance would give this to the owners. These are the players, these are the coaches that we have of color who we believe are qualified or should at least interview for positions. Dan Rooney did not know who Mike Tomlin was, had never heard of him before. But because of the relationship he had with John Wooten, he interviews him, and eventually gets the job. So to answer your question, I give the Steelers a lot of credit, but I think it really goes to Dan Rooney. And the fact that, you look at this past year and there were no black head coaches hired, despite there being 10 openings. Unfortunately, there were no more Dan Rooneys amongst the owners. They needed, to me, for the Rooney Rule to work here moving forward, you need an owner who's like a Dan Rooney, because, what I'm saying, it's going to have to be somebody that I'm going to get the best guy, and I'm going to look at everybody, and I'm going to consider everybody. I'm not going to get caught up in the hype. Dan Rooney looked past that, and he knew that the fan base and the media base in Pittsburgh did not want Mike Tomlin. They wanted they wanted Russ Grimm. That was an easy hire. There was a lot of easy hires we just saw this past year. A lot of these guys that were hired, 2 or 3 years, some of these guys are going to be fired. But there was an easy hire, right? Nobody says anything. Nobody complains. That Mike Tomlin was not an easy hire. Is there an owner out there today who's going to do that? I guess that's the question we all need to ask.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree with you, because I think we was all shocked when Mike McCarthy got the job, because we like, Mike McCarthy is up in age, not to be funny, but he's not going to be around probably for 20, 30 years or not. He going to be, Pittsburgh only have 3, 4 coaches in 50 years. So we know Mike McCarthy, no matter how good he is, more than likely he's not going to make it another 20 years coaching. You know what I mean? So
I don't think I'm out on a limb. If Dan Rooney was still alive, Mike McCarthy would not have been the coach. I think I can say that. I think I can say that.
I agree with you on that one.
Without any hesitation. Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. Writing this book with Mike Tomlin, what was the most fun about it? What like stuff when you were sitting down with him, getting all information, and y'all just sitting around chopping it up about what he wanted to go in the book? What was the most fun about it?
Well, I got to tell you, Mike Tomlin, I did not interview Mike Tomlin per se. Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. The guy that we see on the sideline, who we think we know but we don't, that's Mike Tomlin. Fortunately, his brother, Ed, who actually was a really good football player at the University of Maryland, I didn't know. They were very close. And Ed became my Mike Tomlin. He's 4 years older than Mike. And he told me a lot. He gave me a lot of insight. He did tell me this. He said, "Hey, John, I talked to Mike, and let me put it to you this way. If he didn't want me to talk, if he didn't want you to do this book, I wouldn't be talking to you." He said, "I'm gonna leave it at that." So I'm beholden forever to Ed Tomlin, who great guy, and he and Mike are very close. He doesn't, I interviewed him for the book. He doesn't think that Mike's going to go to TV. And this was before all this happened. This is when he was still coaching. He thinks he calls him a gym teacher, a coach. And I kind of believe that. I don't necessarily he doesn't seem like a guy who's going to be in a press box doing a Tampa Bay Atlanta Falcons game. Or
wow.
He's just 52, 53. I still think he's still young. I don't believe that he's not going to coach again. Apparently, he's told people that. I just think the right opportunity is going to present itself maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. The price is going to be right. He's been doing this forever. But I think maybe he needs to recharge his batteries after 19 years. Those 19 years in Pittsburgh, probably seemed like 30 years with the
Absolutely.
pressure. And, there's no way you can define any black play. What being a black coach of the Steelers in Pittsburgh is, I can't really explain it to you. I would say it's probably like being the coach in Birmingham, Alabama in 1957.
Wow.
So before I throw it back over to Coach, I was going to say this. So you don't think if they throw that Tom Brady money at him for at least 1 year, he wouldn't go in the booth just to, for that 1 year? Because I think he get that Tom Brady type of money for a year.
He might. I can't say he wouldn't do that. He was due to make $15-16 million next year. So he turned down a lot of money, which I don't know. I think some people might have said, "Hey, you got to fire me. I got to get paid. I got to get, I got to get these 2 years." So in that regard, he's not quote unquote driven by money, but you never know. If somebody tosses $25-30 million for a year, he might do it. That wouldn't shock. He wouldn't be the first person to do that. I don't think but he's not phony. I don't know if it's really in his heart to do that. To start criticizing players and coaching peers. He's very close to his players, very, very close. And that put him on another level as a coach. The relationship that he had with his players that went beyond the football field. Getting to know them as men. I know Casey Hampton, who's in the book, nose tackle. He said, to be honest with you, outside of practicing games, he said we did not talk football. We talked life. Our sons were like the same age, around the same age, and a lot of players will tell you that he really knew them as people, as fathers, as husbands, which maybe separated him from a lot of NFL coaches, a lot of coaches in general. And I don't know, can he go from that to breaking down and critiquing teams, the Steelers, players he coached, players he's coached against? I don't know. He might, like you say, if the price is right, but I wouldn't really be surprised if that happened.
Yeah. Go ahead, Coach.
Man, I tell you what, as it's been going around the horn, I'm taking all this in, and what Mr. Harris is saying, it's the truth. Now, I'm gonna let you in on a little inside scoop as Mr. Harris has been talking about that Pittsburgh stuff. My cousin is currently the head basketball coach at the University of Pittsburgh, Jeff Capel.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so with Jeff, matter of fact, hey, guess what, Jacob, we beat Cal today, so we got the number 15 seed going in the ACC tournament. We hopefully we can back into this thing, right? But here's the statement I'm making about the Steel City that I loved all my life, and I've been to Pittsburgh almost every year of my life, but it is a very tough place for a minority coach, right? Jeff is the first minority coach, first black basketball coach at the University of Pittsburgh. So of course, Mike Tomlin's the first. Okay, he's the first black coach to Steelers, and of course, Coach Tomlin reaches out to Jeff when he gets the job. Jeff actually thought it was a prank call when he said it was Mike Tomlin on the horn welcoming him to the Steel City. So that conversation was robust about how you navigate, whether you're in Squirrel Hill or whether you down in Oakland or what. No matter where you be, because most of the people there don't want you there, right? And the moment you stump your toe, they want to show you the door, right? So whether you come in, like Coach T was and have the career that he had versus are you bouncing that ball up the floor, you can't make it. So watch this. I'm going to throw this out right here to everybody that's on. And so if this was your quarterbacks, tell me if you would make the playoffs. Mike Trubisky, Russell Wilson, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, and Aaron Rodgers. I got that. I'm gonna hold my phone up, right? I'm gonna put them all on blast, right? And you tell me, right, Jacob? You stand on the sideline with your headphones on, right? Can you make it to the playoffs with them guys? I ain't gonna call them clowns because they are in the NFL, but in that. So, Mr. Harris, here's where I want to go. You had the opportunity to have Coach Tony Dungy do the foreword in this magnificent book. Tell us about that time and just sitting down with a legendary coach. And here's the other thing. I classify Coach Tomlin as the Jackie Robinson of the NFL. He wasn't the first black head coach. Of course, he was not. But the tenure and the grind and the things, like you said, and I think you eloquently put it, his 19 years could seem like 50. So let us in that conversation with you and Coach Dungy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Tony Dungy from that situation because he said when they only coached together for a year. He hired Mike Tomlin. He got fired the next year. What I thought people never look at that Tampa Bay. I thought they got royally screwed. Excuse my French. Against St. Louis in the playoffs. I think they lost 10-9. And in fact, it was such a bad call against them that the NFL the next year, it was a catch possession rule that they changed. That a player had caught the ball, but they ruled that he hadn't. Tampa Bay wasn't able to score. They lost 10-9. But people forget that was the greatest show on turf that year, and they held them to 10 points. I felt that Chase maybe should have gone to the Super Bowl, and with that defense, they would have won. But he got fired. They brought in John Gruden, and he went to the Super Bowl. When he left and went to Indianapolis, he wanted to bring Mike Tomlin with him, which I didn't know, as his defensive coordinator. Now, think about this. Tomlin had just been an assistant for 1 year under him. He wanted to bring him to Indianapolis, but contractually, Tampa Bay folks would not let him go. So that told me a lot about what Tony Dungy thought about Mike Tomlin at a very young age, just 1 year under his wing. Just that 1 year, Mike talks about what Tony Dungy taught him as far as being a coach, as far as being a dad. He talked about when he had just gotten the job, he went into Tony Dungy's office. Tony Dungy was in the office. His young son at the time, was sitting in the room playing a video game. And he just said, just watching that kind of got him out of the clouds a little bit and made things a little bit more human and more realistic. He said, hey, I can do this. It's not just, I'm going to be a coach, but I'm also still going to be a person. I'm still going to be a dad. I'm still going to be a husband. So I think Tony Dungy, beyond the X's and O's, taught Mike Tomlin a lot of those things, as well as what it's like to be a black coach. Now, at that time, nobody imagined that in 5 years later, Mike Tomlin was going to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Tony Dungy had a lot to do with that. He talked to Dan Rooney extensively about, I think you should hire Mike Tomlin. That had a lot to do. Here's the thing. Like you say, it takes a village. Mike Tomlin doesn't get the job if it's not for John Wooten, who I mentioned, and if it's not for Tony Dungy. I would like to see that happening a lot more today.
Wow.
Amongst the black coaches, gentlemen, whoever's there, it takes a village. It took a village for Mike Tomlin to get in there, and I think it's going to take a village. It's going to take the media, the black media, to write about it more, to highlight these people, and I think it's easy to write about. Okay, 10 jobs, no black coaches got a job. Okay, we're kind of late to the party by then. These coaches need to be written about. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? Talked
Absolutely.
about during the season, so we know who these people are. So the media knows who these people are. So the coaches know who these are. So the owners who make, at the end of the day, the owners are the ones that pull the string. So they know who it is. Put their names out there. We can't sit there and wait on people to do the right thing, right? Sometimes you gotta nudge them. Sometimes you gotta push them to do the right thing. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Absolutely. All right. Jacob, I see you in the back of the end zone, man.
So, would you saying it takes a village? I'm really glad to really understand the backstory because a lot of people don't. Because like you said, he came from out of nowhere. It's like if we look at the synopsis of Barack Obama. I
Right.
never know who Barack was before he was running for president. So he came out like a thief in the night. But we all know who he is now. And as far as Mike goes, when you was writing his book, man, what are some of the things that you learned about that you actually didn't know about?
That's a good question. I only knew about Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. I knew nothing about his college. And most people don't know. That's why I spent a lot of time in the book talking about his early years as a coach. And to me, Mike Tomlin is the only black coach who had a career path to me like a white coach. And by that, I mean,
Wow.
a lot of times now you see these young guys, they get the graduate assistant job and they get the head coaching job by the time they're 30, right? But it's a process. So Mike Tomlin, Dan Quinn, who's now the Washington coach, was his assistant coach his final year at William & Mary. Mike Tomlin was a record-setting wide receiver at William & Mary. This is who Mike Tomlin was in college. Dan Quinn is a young assistant coach. Mike Tomlin invites Dan Quinn to a frat party. Now imagine a player inviting an assistant coach to a fraternity party. Just think about the whatever you want to call it, to do that, to step to a coach. Hey, why don't you come to this party? And Dan Quinn went, and they became friends. So guess what? When Dan Quinn leaves, he gets a job at VMI, and they had an opening there. And the head coach mentioned, he said, anybody got anybody in mind? And Dan Quinn said, yeah, there's this guy over at William & Mary, Mike Tomlin. So that's how it works, right? So then he goes from there, he goes to Memphis. And the coach there had a connection to Mike Tomlin's former coach at William & Mary. So these two coaches knew each other, right? So then he leaves there, he goes to Arkansas State. Did anybody even know that he was even there? You know what I mean? He was at Arkansas State. The Arkansas State coach, was trying to get him at Ohio State because the Arkansas State coach had been an assistant at Ohio State. But before he could do that, Mike Tomlin got the offer to go to Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati. The Cincinnati head coach went way back with the Memphis head coach. They had coached together a long time ago, right? So you see this path that's going on here now. So now when Tampa Bay has an opening, Monty Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's father, the late Monty Kiffin, is a defensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. He and the Cincinnati head coach had coached together 25 years earlier. So there's a connection. You see that? So he was a good coach. He put in the work, but every step of the way, there was somebody there for him. He had people that he could use as mentors, people that could push him in the right direction, and people that would put in a good word. Because remember, I wrote as one of my chapters is like when he first started coaching, there were I think maybe the only black coach out there. Maybe it was Art Shell had been a coach, and I think Dennis Green had been a coach at Northwestern. So there were no role models, but that didn't dissuade Mike. One day I could be a head coach. There were no role models out there for him to say, yeah, you know what, this is a profession where I know I'm going to be. He wanted to coach, but he was determined to do it. That wasn't going to dissuade him from it. So I would just say what I learned from him was just he was a grinder. No assignment, no job was too hard. But he was always going to be himself. He was always going to relate to his players. He was going to coach them hard. But he was always going to show them a side of him and make them think that I don't mind working hard for this dude because this dude actually cares about me. Wow. So I would say I learned that about him. But just the fact that he got his start the hard way, a way a lot of these young coaches do. And he got his head coaching job when he was 34 years old. He wasn't supposed to get the Minnesota defensive coordinator job. That Brad Childress, who I really tipped my hat to, wanted to hire the Kansas City defensive coordinator, who everybody acknowledges is like one of the best. I don't know why his name slipped me right now. It'll come to me. But they work together in Philadelphia. Brad Childress goes to Minnesota as the head coach. He wanted to hire his boy from Philly as a defensive coordinator, but Andy Reid, who was the head coach in Philly at the time, said, no, you can't have him. So that was number one on his list. Who does he go to? This young black coach everybody's talking about, Mike Tomlin. And Brad Childress gives Mike Tomlin this opportunity to run the defense. So things just kind of happen. So it's like if this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen, this doesn't happen, right? So he was extremely fortunate, but and I think all of us can look back on our careers, our lives, and say, somebody stepped in, somebody put in a good word for us, somebody recommended us. But then you got to step in and do the job.
Wow.
When you actually present yourself. So that's how I would describe Mike Tomlin, in the right place at the right time a lot of times. But when the opportunity presented itself, he did what he needed to do.
Okay. Now we're gonna switch gears and then I'm gonna throw it back to you, Icon. Man, the great Edgerrin James. I had a pleasure of meeting him probably like 3 times when I used to live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Um, just a couple of gatherings that I was invited to, and a pretty, a pretty cool fella. But his story is pretty remarkable. From what I know. So, what are some things working with Edgerrin James and just learning about him as a whole? What are those moments that kind of wowed you?
He financially, I don't know if anybody's ever been as good as him. And when you look at his background, where he came from, it's amazing how he was able to do these things. How, he gets, he runs for 299 yards against UCLA, which turned out to be his last college game, and made that decision then he was going to go pro. Was not the Indianapolis when the Indianapolis drafted him, the fans did not want him. He had dreads, he had the grill. They wanted Ricky Williams. He goes to Indy, was not a favorite. And then he had the audacity, and I'm saying that loosely, to hold out. He didn't sign a contract right away. He signed for, at the time, one of the biggest contracts ever for a player, a first-round pick, and stuck by his guns and did not report until he had signed his contract. But he hit the ground. I tell anybody, go back and look at Edgerrin James's rookie highlights to this day. They are remarkable. He jumped in there and just tore it up. Had a great career, blew out his ACL, I think in his third year, but was able to bounce back. One of only a handful of players to have 4 1,500-yard seasons. Was his own man. Got out, probably could have played a few more years. Had kids. The mom of some of his kids passed away, died of leukemia. He just felt like I think it's more of a remarkable story. It was important for him to be a dad. You want to talk story, they talk about black men and fathers and all that. Just look at his story. He's got 6 kids, 5. They're all in college, I think. Most of them have graduated. If they haven't graduated, they're getting ready to graduate. One's an attorney. One, he plays point guard for the University of Cincinnati. Jizzle James, that's his son. His other son was a running back at Howard. One of his daughters is a attorney. She went to Howard. Another daughter is studying to be a plastic surgeon, I believe.
Wow.
And another daughter is a singer in Atlanta. So financially, in the book, he wanted me to talk to Clinton Portis. They were boys back at the University of Miami, the U. And Clinton Portis talked the difference between Edgerrin James and a lot of other guys. Clinton Portis lost a lot of money in some bad investments. And he talked about the mindset of players. What makes them do that? What makes them trust people they don't even know? And what made them different from Edgerrin? Where Edgerrin, the deal that Clinton Portis lost a lot of money on, I think Ray Lewis lost money on. Several players lost money on this deal. One player didn't because he didn't get involved. That was Edgerrin James. And Clinton Portis said the difference between us and Edge was that when Edge was going to get involved in anything, that whoever approached him was going to have to put skin in the game too. Whereas a lot of athletes, they trust, hey, I got a great deal for you. Give me $1 million and I'll give you 5 back. Edgerrin, no, that's not how Edgerrin was. That's not how he is. That's not how he is to this day. And I would say that was the thing that stood out to me the most. Had mother's wit. He and his family will be financially secure for the rest of their lives. And he's just a very unique person that way. Just took care of his money, took care of his family, takes care of his kids, and was a great, great football player, but wasn't defined by it. Once he got out of football, he just kind of transitioned. He's still out. You see him. I saw him on the sideline when Miami was making their college playoff run. He's there, but he's doing he's not defined by that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That was one element of him. So
Yeah.
he's a great story, great individual. You know, I think highly of him. We still communicate, have big respect for him.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I end up. I believe a lot of times when people, cause I know where he grew up in Miami. You know, I've been all through Little Haiti and Miami Gardens and all his stomping grounds. You know what I mean? And where he grew up at, you know, to just trust somebody with your money, that
Mhm.
doesn't happen. And so he kind of really, I think he kind of like focused on like how he grew up and what he's seen growing up, and you know, you just can't give anybody opportunity to take your money. So good for him. Over you, Akon.
Well, believe it or not, we talked about two of my favorite teams, the Washington Redskins Commanders. I've been a fan since the '80s, since Joe Theismann, and in Miami, the U. You know what I'm saying? So I was very proud of them getting to the national championship game this year. That make me feel like they're back. But the question I have for you, Mr. Harris, is I hope you answer this right. If Dan Quinn wets the bed this year, do you think Mike Tomlin would be a good fit and consider going to Washington behind him?
That might be a good fit because they have a quarterback, and he also, he's from Hampton, so that, and I know his brother Ed said I think they both grew up as Redskins or Washington fans, so maybe that might be something, but I don't know. Dan Quinn, that's his boy. He's very loyal. They go way back to VMI and William and Mary. But yeah, that's a team I could see. I don't see him just going to any team. It's got to be a team that's got a lot of talent. It's got to be a team that has a quarterback, a good quarterback, and it's got to be an ownership. He had a unique relationship with Dan Rooney. He had a unique relationship with the Steelers ownerships in general that you don't see too often. He would have to be that type of situation, right? He's not going to go into a situation. I think it would be great. I think the fan base would love him. So yeah, I think if I was going to pick a team, I would pick that team. So that, I don't know if that's the right answer you wanted to hear. But
I'll take it. I'll take it, sir. I will take it. I got one last question for you. So we know sports and entertainment is what you call a copycat thing. Right. So being the success that Mike Tomlin had, other than the obvious, why do you feel like more organizations didn't follow the blueprint, didn't hire more black coaches, other than the obvious, because they seen it after seeing the success with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, there was a run. Marvin Lewis came in. If you go back and look during that time period, he did also spark a run of young coaches as well, young regardless of color. If you notice, there are several young coaches that were hired after him. Before that, the league didn't do that. They didn't hire young coaches. His success winning the Super Bowl in his second year at age 36, that encouraged teams to go out. Remember, what's the guy just got fired at Atlanta? He got the Tampa Bay job. Raheem Morris. They had worked together. He and Mike Tomlin had worked together at Tampa Bay. So some teams were maybe doing the copycat thing and looking at what Mike Tomlin did. I think Marvin Lewis got hired during that time. Maybe he got hired before. But there were some hires. 49ers hired Mike Singletary. Right. I think it was during that time. So there were more black coaches hired during that time. Like you said, it is a copycat. It is. But
the only problem is now, not to cut you off, but the only problem is now over the last probably 4 or 5 years is they cut the string too quick. Like it'd be like a one and done type of thing. Like, oh, we did it. It's almost like they say we did it, just to say they did it, and then after 1 or 2 years, they just cut them off, even when they know the team is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like they did with old boy out there in New England. I mean, the four of us could have went out there and played for New England. That's how less of talent they was when they had old boy last year before they brought on Mike Vrabel.
Gerard Mayo, yeah. I mean, I said it. To me, it comes down to the ownership. There aren't a lot of owners out there who. I mean, I know that he just fired Raheem Morris, but he did hire him. He did hire a black general manager. He just hired a new black general manager. Arthur Blank. The Philadelphia owner, Jeff Lurie. When John Wooten was there, people forget John Wooten hired Ray Rhodes, who was only at that time was the 4th black head coach. Jeff Lurie, I could see doing, because Jeff Lurie will fire you in a heart. He fires coaches right and left, white, black, or whatever. There's only a handful of owners who have shown an ability or an openness to doing this. And to me, I don't want to overstate that. I just think the Rooney Rule, to me, it's contingent on the owners, the ownership. It's got to come from, nobody's going to tell Roger Goodell, despite making $50 million a year, whatever he makes, doesn't matter what he says. At the end of the day, the owner is going to have to want to do that, and the owner has to have an open mind. He also has to have a trust factor, and there has to be relationship building. And I think that's the main thing. The owners, they're not building relationships with these maybe younger black coaches, assistants, whoever, so they don't really know them on a personal level, or they're not. Somebody was telling me that Minnesota, they just fired their black general manager. Supposedly, one of the reasons was that he took a 2 weeks off a year or so ago when he had a child. But it was told to me that the owners in Minnesota weren't really involved with the team. They just showed up, right? They trusted the coach and everybody else to run it. They were not connected. So all these owners are not the same. For some of them, the team is just one of their businesses. For the Steelers, the Rooneys, that was their business, right? The Steelers was all they had. But a lot of these owners, they own other teams. Mm-hmm. They own corporations, businesses. So they're not necessarily hands-on on now. Now I will say this: Jerry Jones is never going to hire a black coach. So I say that. Who's a Cowboys fan? I'll just say that.
Hey, most of us Cowboys fans already know that. You ain't saying nothing. You ain't saying nothing that we don't know.
I told no lie.
Well, Mr. Harris, I appreciate you coming on here tonight. Get up so your time. When we heard that you was coming on our show, we was super humbled and appreciative, because you could have went anywhere, any kind of platform, in all the platforms. I know they're gonna be calling left and right at some point, and you decided to come on, to give us an opportunity, the little small fish in the big pond guys. So I appreciate you giving us this opportunity. And Coach, can you plug the book for him one last time before we get out of here?
Absolutely. I'm going to hold my copy up right now and tell you this thing is as hot as fish grease. So make sure you reach out and get a copy of that. And also, Mr. Harris, and you need to make a swing through VA and have a book signing, or have another one. I'll be in the Dallas market in about 2 weeks, and then have another one. I need this copy. Need this copy with your hand in it. But no, folks, you will enjoy this. Again, Tomlin, The Soul of a Football Coach by Mr. John Harris.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I think people will appreciate the book more now, even though he's not coaching. I think people still want to know about his career, his life. This book tells you all of that, and it goes all the way up to this season. So it's the only book on him this way. I encourage everybody to get your copy, get 2 copies.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a blessed and wonderful week.
You guys do the same. Thanks so much for thinking of me.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
have a great one.
All right.
All right, y'all too.
Brown skin girl, and she knew I was out to go and clear my mind. The girl